All right. Do I hear a motion to approve the letter of request to DHEC to alter the COVID quarantine policy?
Madam Chair, I move that the board approve the letter of request to DHEC to alter the COVID quarantine policy.
Thank you, Ms. Henson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. And how this came about, there's been some conversations among board members, and Dr. Guyton and Ms. Henson got together and have prepared a letter that was distributed to the board in our packets for review. And I believe that Ms. Henson and Dr. Guyton are going to kind of introduce this and lead the discussion for us.
Sure. Should we read the letter for? I'll read it and then you can. Okay.
Nope. Wrong one. I'm so sorry, y'all. 2 seconds. I'm so close. Haha, there it is. Okay. Dear DHEC, as the Board of Trustees for Lexington County School District 1, we feel an increasing need to convey our concerns regarding the current quarantine guidelines for close contacts to COVID-19 as stipulated by DHEC exclusionary list and the inevitable impact on the quality of education received by the children of the community we serve. It is our understanding and belief that DHEC and the updated exclusionary list carries the weight of law as stated within South Carolina Code of Laws, Chapter 1, Title 44, and further opened on August 16th, 2021 by the Attorney General's Office of South Carolina as attached. As such, any variation from the guidelines set forth in the DHEC exclusionary list would equate to a violation of South Carolina state law, as well the loss of protection under the COVID Immunity Bill codified into law. Thus, local school districts have no authority or power to deviate from the DHEC exclusionary list. With that said, we therefore feel it incumbent upon us as a board to bring to light the significant impacts of quarantining close contacts and the associated learning loss and seek additional clarity. While we completely agree that very early into the pandemic, there was a necessity to use close contact quarantining as a mitigation strategy to combat the effects of COVID-19. We now question the continued use of this mitigation strategy. We applaud DHEC and the decision to reduce quarantine and isolation mitigation strategies for COVID-19 with the most recent adaptations, but additionally feel that more clarity and potential updating of close contact quarantining is needed. This coming March will be 2 years since COVID-19 began impacting Lexington County School District 1's ability to educate our children in a way that we know is best for the majority of our learners. Our number one job is to teach the students entrusted to us, which is something our amazing district has done for decades. Throughout the last 22 months of this pandemic, our district has strived to comply with DHEC's guidelines. On January 12th, 2022, we had 3,474 students absent from school who were not sick. That is 12.4% of our student population who were not on campus that day. While our district has attempted to continue instruction virtually for our quarantined students, the quality of learning is not the caliber we are able to provide when students are in classrooms with our highly qualified teachers. Students are falling behind academically, which is something that will take years to recover. In addition to the tremendous quantity of work that this has added to our teachers having to teach dual modalities and our staff having to contact trace, your guidelines have put an incredible financial burden on our parents and guardians who are missing work to stay home with their healthy children. In order for us to do our job of educating students, it is important that they attend school in person so that they can continue growing academically, emotionally, and socially. We request that you modify your COVID-19 exclusion rules to only quarantine students who have tested positive, as well as remove quarantine rules that are based on a student's or employee's vaccination status. Sincerely, Board of Trustees, Lexington County School District 1.
Thank you, Ms. Henson. All right. Sir, Dr. Guyton, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. So, I think one thing that has become evident over these past couple of years is that we experience transitions through this, and I think we're at a transition point where, although it doesn't feel like it right now with the current surge, that we begin to have to redirect our thinking in terms of living with COVID, much in the same way that we live with flu, we live with RSV, we live with a lot of the other illnesses that we encounter. And so I think with that, obviously, data is an important part. Although I think my opinion has changed on that a little bit in that I am a scientist myself. I'm a firm believer in science, but I think science without philosophy, science without an appreciation for behavior and those kind of things is missing the mark. And so I think we have to take that into account. I think the behavior that we're seeing is obviously, we've seen the transition with DHEC to label hospital workers as a critical need, and therefore they have reduced that to where there are no quarantining guidelines for close contact. We have recently seen the same adaptations for teachers during times of crisis. My argument would be we are now experiencing the same crisis with our students, and that this is now a measured approach given the status of what we have learned over these past 2 years, and given the fact that this is the only tool we have. I'm a firm believer in lanes. I'm a firm believer in roles and responsibilities. The DHEC exclusionary list is the weight of law. I do have a copy of the Attorney General's opinion that was requested by a couple senators that verified that very thing, that it carries the weight of law. And so we feel that. Teachers feel it, nurses feel it, parents feel it, community feels it, everybody feels it. And so this is the only thing we have at this point is our voice. And so this was a compilation between Ms. Henson and myself to address that very need.
And I was just, so back in I think we were still in winter break, and I was actually talking with Dr. Guyton because we were starting to see cases come up, and there was a lot of conversation about implementing a mask requirement temporarily. And he and I were just talking about options and different things, and you know, whether we wanted to go down the road of bucking against the budget proviso to implement a mask requirement. And I just off the top of my head said, well, I mean, at this point in time, I'd rather go against the DHEC requirements and fight that battle than go against the mask proviso. And I was so surprised when Dr. Guyton said, well, absolutely, that's what we should do, or I would support that. And then separately, a few weeks later, talking to me, so I was very grateful when Ms. Henson and Dr. Guyton came together on this and brought this letter together, because I think that this is the next step. I think this is what we need to do. So I'm very grateful for this. So.
And Ms. Henson, you want to talk about, we took this to our school nurses, and again, we got feedback from the district office on this.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Powers weighed in, and he suggested just kind of vetting this through our district just to make sure it was really capturing what was going on in our schools through like our nurses and
it's a collaborative work product of the district and the board.
So, and even our chief communications officer, you know, proofed it for our grammar and punctuation.
Mr. Caldwell, can you talk to the just where we are currently quarantine status and what we're finding out in terms of percent of those kids who are actually testing positive?
Yes, sir. I will give you an exact number, as exact as this dashboard is. Currently, the quarantine students are 2,147. It was 1802 at 8:30 this morning. It had gone up to 2,064, and the last entry made was whenever it was made. It was 2,147, and that is as accurate as it is current. So if there's some cases that have not been put into the spreadsheet to make it to the dashboard, I wouldn't know that, but that's probably pretty accurate. I will tell you that our quarantine to positive rate, students who became positive while quarantined, from the beginning of the school year to December, it was 9.3%. Since we've been back from winter break for the past 2 weeks, and we collect these data every Friday, it has gone up in that 2-week period. the positivity rate was 21.3%. So overall, for the year, we are at 13.2% of students who were quarantined who then became positive while quarantined.
And I think that's an important point, because one of our biggest concerns for a school is the school contributing to the spread within the community? Are we a focus of infection that is endangering the community? And I think we have kind of determined throughout time that that has not been the case, that oftentimes schools have become, do show trends that are less than what we're seeing in the community. And therefore, the contribution of schools to the community spread is less impactful than just the general community. And so I think that's a very important point of consideration. There is an emotional number that exists. We all have an emotional number to where we say, ooh, you probably need to do something. Is that 1%? Is it 10%? Is it 50%? I don't know. It's probably different for everyone. But I do think there is an appreciation that, and to DHEC, you know, our willingness to share that information with them so that they can craft better policy that keeps kids in class. I certainly am for all that, and I'm sure, I'm not going to speak for the board, but I think we would certainly be in favor of doing whatever we can to work with DHEC to lessen quarantine.
But, I mean, I think the trade-off that we're making, if DHEC honors our request, is there'll be more instruction, which I think we're all desperate for, but the reality is there'll be more infection at school. So, and that's the trade-off. And again, it's a tough trade-off, and there's no good answers. But I think, I know for me, I'm excited about more instruction. So,
And I would like, I mean, this is just something that has, if DHEC grants our request, we need to have assurances that this doesn't affect our safe return to schools plan and the guarantees that we've made to the Department of Education. Dr. Little, do you know what the?
And I guess maybe there should be some clarity there. I don't know if this is an individual request for the district. I think this is a request for DHEC in its entirety, because they possess the power, if you will. Them and ultimately the governor's office possess the power to change or to define what is stated within the DHEC exclusionary list. And so I think that's probably a point of attention.
And I think, I guess you're right that it wouldn't just be us. That we would be very popular here and not very popular around the state with other school districts that would wish they were in our place. But I appreciate you also saying, DHEC is a cabinet agency, and they are underneath the governor directly. And so if you want to bring pressure to bear on DHEC, the governor is your person for that. So any other questions, comments, discussion?
This is Jada. Did you have some?
Well, I was just going to say, in terms of return to school, if they did if DHEC revised their thing, the return to school plan doesn't supersede that. That would be first, and then we would revise all of our stuff based upon their guidance. I mean, because that was that's the foundational document for us to move forward.
Just by itself.
Correct.
Go ahead, Ms. Garrett.
Okay. I was just going to say, instead of saying Dear DHEC, if we could address this letter to each board member individually and the director of DHEC, so that each person gets a copy of it. And I don't know how you'll feel about sending it to the governor, but as Anne-Marie just mentioned,
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because when I was talking to them about the letter last week, I asked that we CC the governor on this. So that needs to be added to the letter. And I agree, and I think that also the signature needs to be each of our names. I think rather than just Board of Trustees, not just under my signature, but I think if we all sign the letter, I think that will speak louder.
So just clarifying, since this is a working document, we'll change sincerely and then literally list us all. And then I guess
The
we'll,
addressee, the DHEC has a governing board as well,
right, and a director.
and a director.
So we'll need somebody
Yes.
to look up.
Ms. Halliday can do that for us.
Okay. All the directors, the director, all the board, and the governor.
Yes.
And then we'll all sign it.
Is that what you, Ms. Garrett, is that what you
Yes,
were
I just want to
thinking?
make sure it didn't go to just the chair and the director,
Yes.
that each member receives it individually. Yes.
I think our office can assist with gathering those names for Ms. Halliday.
Thanks.
I mean, I feel like if something comes to you in your name, you kind of have to own it. So if you're just at the bottom with the CC, you might just file it. So,
I mean, maybe the one to Dr. Simmer, that's director of DHEC, Ed Simmer, I think, maybe
Yeah.
his letter is directed to him and Governor McMaster. Because the letter is written to
DHEC.
DHEC.
Right. Yeah, I would say
Good.
either do that, or cover letter to the governor saying, hey,
Yeah.
this is what we sent to DHEC. But yeah,
Either.
director and governor. Okay, so individual board members
in
will
both
get
places,
this
yeah.
letter,
Yeah.
and then the director and governor will be included on a letter together.
that works for me.
Does that
Yep.
sound?
Yep. All right. So, do we want to, since we considered do we have a friendly agreement that this was a work in progress and that the motion on the table
That this is a working
includes the
document?
edits that we just made? Is there
No,
friendly
I
agreement
think,
to that?
I think Kathy needs to read this all again. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I can agree
Okay.
to that, yeah.
With the new addressees?
Yes.
Yes.
No,
Okay.
so we
I don't
have a
know.
motion on the table to approve the letter of request to DHEC and the governor and the DHEC board to alter the COVID quarantine policy. And the letter that we are considering includes the friendly edits that we just made.
Right, of the addressees and then our names all at the
Yes.
end.
Yes. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Oh, can we have this, we need to sign it. I guess we'll have to come back. Oh, can we print the last page tonight? And then we can sign it tonight, and then y'all can find the addresses tomorrow.
Great idea.
Okay.
All right. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Great work. All right.
Can we have a motion for a 2-minute recess?
I was getting ready to say, is anybody opposed to taking a quick 2-minute recess? Second?
Second that.
Anyone opposed? We're going to take a quick 2-minute break.